Black waitress feeds a homeless boy for free, unaware a billionaire is watching her. What if, on a night so cold it could steal your breath, a single act of kindness could unravel the lives of 3 strangers forever? The corner diner wasn't much to look at. Its checkered floors were scuffed, the vinyl booths patched with duct tape, and the jukebox in the corner hadn't worked in years. But for Tasha Williams, it was more than a workplace, it was a sanctuary. At 34, Tasha had spent nearly a decade pouring coffee, flipping burgers, and trading smiles with customers who often forgot to tip. Her hands were calloused, her feet ached, and her bank account was a constant reminder of how close she was to the edge. Yet, every night, she tied her apron with a quiet determination, her warm brown eyes reflecting a resilience that life hadn't managed to snuff out. Tasha's life wasn't easy. She was a single mother to Malik, her 10-year-old son, who was growing faster than her paycheck could keep up with. Their 1-bedroom apartment was cramped, the heat unreliable, and the bills piled higher each month. Tasha worked doubles at the diner, picking up every shift she could, but it was never enough. Malik needed new shoes, school supplies, and a future that didn't look like her present. Still, Tasha never let him see her worry. She'd tuck him in each night with a story and a kiss, whispering promises of better days. Her dream kept her going. Tasha wanted to open a community center, a safe place for kids like Malik, kids who grew up in neighborhoods where dreams were often stolen before they could take root. She imagined a space with books, computers, and mentors who'd show them they were worth more than their circumstances. It was a dream she'd scribbled in a worn notebook, tucked away in her locker at the diner. But dreams cost money, and money was something Tasha didn't have. Despite her struggles, Tasha's heart was her greatest strength. She had a way of seeing people, really seeing them. The regulars at the diner loved her for it. Old Mr. Jenkins, who came in every morning for black coffee and a crossword, always left with a smile because Tasha remembered his wife's favorite song. Clara, the overworked nurse who stopped by after night shifts, found comfort in Tasha's quiet listening. Even the grumpy delivery drivers softened when Tasha slipped an extra cookie onto their plate. Her kindness wasn't calculated, it was just who she was. It was a bitter Tuesday night in late January, the kind of cold that seeped into your bones and stayed there. The diner was quieter than usual, with only a handful of customers nursing their coffees. Tasha wiped down the counter, her mind drifting to Malik. He'd been quieter lately, his usual chatter replaced by a pensiveness that worried her. She wondered if he sensed her stress, if he knew how hard she was fighting to keep them afloat. As she refilled the ketchup bottles, her gaze drifted to the window. That's when she saw him, a boy sitting on the sidewalk across from the diner, his knees pulled to his chest. He couldn't have been older than 16. His jacket was too thin for the weather, his sneakers soaked through, and his face was smudged with dirt. He stared at the diner with a mix of longing and resignation, like he knew warmth was just out of reach. Tasha's heart twisted. She'd seen plenty of homeless folks around the diner, men and women worn down by life, their stories etched in their faces. But this boy was different. He was just a kid, someone's son. She thought of Malik, safe at home with her neighbor watching him, and the ache in her chest deepened. She didn't think twice. Tasha grabbed a bowl from the kitchen, ladled it full of the day's special, tomato basil soup, and tore off a chunk of fresh bread. She slipped on her coat and stepped outside, the cold hitting her like a slap. The boy looked up as she approached, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Hey, sweetheart," Tasha said softly, crouching to his level. "It's too cold out here. Come inside, let me get you something warm to eat." The boy, James, though Tasha didn't know his name yet, stiffened. "I don't have any money," he muttered, his voice rough but tinged with a pride that hadn't been beaten out of him. "Didn't ask for any," Tasha replied with a gentle smile. "Come on, it's on me." James hesitated, his hunger warring with his distrust. Finally, he nodded, standing slowly as if expecting the offer to vanish. Tasha led him inside, ignoring the curious glances from the other customers. She sat him at a booth near the heater, placed the soup and bread in front of him, and poured a glass of water. "Take your time," she said, then returned to the counter, giving him space. She didn't ask where he came from or why he was alone. She knew better than to pry. Sometimes, kindness was enough. James ate slowly at first, as if savoring every spoonful. The warmth of the soup brought color back to his cheeks, and for a moment, he looked like any other kid. But his eyes told a different story, haunted, guarded, like he was waiting for the world to take this moment away. As he finished, he glanced at Tasha, his expression unreadable. She gave him a nod, her smile unwavering. Across the street, Samuel Montgomery sat in the back of his Bentley, the engine idling softly. At 52, Samuel was a man who commanded attention without trying. His tailored suits, sharp jawline, and piercing blue eyes spoke of power, but his wealth was his loudest feature. As the CEO of Montgomery Enterprises, he'd built an empire spanning real estate, tech, and philanthropy. His name was on skyscrapers, charity galas, and Forbes lists. But behind the polished facade, Samuel was a man adrift. His life was a series of transactions. Business deals, social appearances, even his relationships felt like contracts. His marriage had ended a decade ago, his ex-wife citing his obsession with work. His grown daughter, Emily, barely spoke to him, her resentment a mirror of his own regrets. Samuel filled the void with more work, more acquisitions, but the emptiness grew. He'd achieved everything he'd set out to, yet he felt nothing. Lately, he'd been coming to the corner diner, not to eat, but to watch. It started by chance. He'd been stuck in traffic one evening, his driver pulling over near the diner. Through the window, he'd seen Tasha, her laughter cutting through the monotony of his day. She was serving a table of rowdy construction workers, her wit keeping them in line while her warmth made them feel seen. Samuel was captivated. He started returning, parking across the street, observing her like a puzzle he couldn't solve. Tasha was everything he wasn't. Where he was calculated, she was genuine. Where he was detached, she was connected. He envied her, but he also admired her. She reminded him of who he'd been before success hardened him, a young man with dreams of making a difference, not just a fortune. That night, as Samuel watched Tasha bring James inside, something shifted in him. He saw the way she crouched to the boy's level, her voice soft but firm. He saw the boy's hesitation, then his surrender to her kindness. And he saw Tasha's smile, a smile that asked for nothing in return. It was a moment so pure, so human, that it cracked something open in Samuel's chest. He leaned back in his seat, his mind racing. For the first time in years, he felt a spark of purpose. Tasha Williams wasn't just a waitress. She was a reminder of what he'd lost, and what he could still find. The next morning, Tasha woke to the familiar sound of her alarm. She dragged herself out of bed, her body protesting after another late shift. Malik was already up, eating cereal at their small kitchen table. His backpack was slung over a chair, his math homework scattered beside it. "Morning, baby," Tasha said, kissing his forehead. "You finished that homework?" "Almost," Malik mumbled, his eyes on his bowl. "It's hard." Tasha sat beside him, glancing at the worksheet. "Let's figure it out together tonight, okay? We got this." Malik nodded, but his silence lingered. Tasha's heart sank. She wanted to give him more time, stability, a life where he didn't have to worry. But for now, all she could do was keep going. At the diner, the day passed in a blur of orders and small talk. Tasha's thoughts kept drifting to James. She wondered if he'd found a place to stay, if he was warm. She didn't expect to see him again. Most people she helped moved on, their paths crossing hers only briefly. But she hoped he'd carry that moment of kindness with him. Meanwhile, Samuel spent the morning in his office, staring out at the city skyline. His desk was cluttered with reports, his inbox overflowing, but his mind was elsewhere. He couldn't stop thinking about Tasha and the boy. He'd built a foundation years ago, a tax write-off that funded scholarships and shelters. But it was impersonal, run by executives who cared more about PR than impact. What if he could do something real? Something that mattered? He called his assistant, Claire. "Find out everything you can about the corner diner." And a waitress named Tasha Williams. Claire raised an eyebrow but didn't question him. By noon, she'd compiled a file. Tasha was a single mother, no college degree, no criminal record. She'd been at the diner for 9 years, her performance reviews glowing. The diner itself was struggling, its owner barely keeping it afloat. Samuel read the file twice, his resolve hardening. That evening, he returned to the diner, not as an observer, but as a customer. He stepped inside, the bell above the door jingling. Tasha glanced up from the counter, her smile automatic. "Welcome to the corner diner," she said. "Booth or counter?" "Booth," Samuel replied, his voice smooth but hesitant. He wasn't used to feeling nervous. Tasha led him to a booth, handing him a menu. "Coffee to start?" "Please," he said, studying her. Up close, she was even more striking, her eyes warm, her presence grounding. He wondered how someone with so little could give so much. As Tasha poured his coffee, Samuel took a breath. "I saw what you did last night," he said. "With the boy outside." Tasha froze, her hand tightening on the coffee pot. "You were watching me?" "Not like that," Samuel said quickly. "I was across the street. I saw you bring him in, give him food. You didn't have to do that." Tasha relaxed slightly, but her guard was up. He was hungry. Anyone would have done the same. "No," Samuel said softly. "They wouldn't." Tasha shifted, uncomfortable with the intensity of his gaze. "You want to order, or just talk about my night?" Samuel smiled, disarmed by her directness. "I'll order. But I'd like to talk, too. About an opportunity." Tasha sat across from Samuel after her shift, her apron folded on the table. The diner was nearly empty, the last customers lingering over pie. Samuel had introduced himself as Samuel Montgomery, a name she vaguely recognized from news headlines. He'd asked for 10 minutes of her time, and though she was wary, curiosity won out. "I run a foundation," Samuel began. "We fund programs for underserved communities, scholarships, shelters, that sort of thing. But it's not enough. I want to do more. Something real. And I think you can help me." Tasha raised an eyebrow. "Me? I'm a waitress, Mr. Montgomery. What do I know about foundations?" "You know people," Samuel said. "You know what they need. I saw it last night with that boy. You didn't just give him food, you gave him dignity. That's what my foundation lacks. Heart." Tasha leaned back, her arms crossed. "So what are you asking?" "I want you to work for me," Samuel said. "Help me build a program for homeless kids. Food, shelter, education, whatever they need to get back on their feet. And I want to fund your dream. That community center you've been thinking about." Tasha's breath caught. "How do you know about that?" Samuel hesitated. "I've been watching the diner for a while. I've seen how you are with people. I asked around. Your co-workers talk about you like you're a saint." Tasha's eyes narrowed. "You've been spying on me." "Not spying," Samuel said, wincing. "Observing. I'm sorry if it feels invasive. But I'm serious about this. I have the resources to make your dream happen. And I want to learn from you how to care the way you do." Tasha stared at him, her mind spinning. This man, with his expensive suit and polished words, was offering her a chance to change her life. But she'd learned the hard way that nothing came free. "Why me?" she asked. "You don't even know me." "Because you're real," Samuel said, his voice raw. "I've spent my life chasing things that don't matter. Money, power, status. But last night, watching you with that boy, it reminded me of who I used to be. I want to find that again. And I think you can show me how." Tasha's resolve wavered. She thought of Malik, of the community center, of all the kids like James who needed someone to believe in them. But trust didn't come easy. "I need time to think," she said finally. Samuel nodded. "Take all the time you need. My card's on the table." The next week was a blur for Tasha. She couldn't shake Samuel's offer. Part of her wanted to dismiss it as too good to be true, but another part, the part that still dared to dream, kept circling back to it. She talked it over with Malik, who listened with wide eyes. "You could help kids like me?" he asked. "Yeah, baby," Tasha said, ruffling his hair. "Maybe." That Sunday, Tasha found herself outside the diner, staring at the spot where James had sat. She hadn't seen him since that night, but his face stayed with her. She pulled Samuel's card from her pocket, her thumb tracing the embossed letters. Then she made her decision. She met Samuel at his office the next day, a sleek space that felt worlds away from the diner. He greeted her with a cautious smile, as if afraid she'd change her mind. "I'm in," Tasha said. "But I have conditions. This program, it's not about photo ops or tax breaks. It's about the kids. And the community center? It's not just mine. It's for the neighborhood. We do this right, or not at all." Samuel's smile widened. "I wouldn't have it any other way." Over the next months, Tasha and Samuel worked together, their partnership an unlikely blend of grit and resources. Tasha brought her heart, her understanding of what kids like James needed. Samuel brought his connections, his wealth, and a growing humility. The program took shape: mobile kitchens for hot meals, pop-up shelters, tutors who doubled as mentors. The community center broke ground in the spring, its blueprint a mix of Tasha's vision and Samuel's funding. James showed up one day, drawn by word of the program. Tasha recognized him instantly. He was cleaner now, his eyes less haunted. He'd found a shelter, a job washing dishes. When Tasha offered him a spot in the program, he hesitated, then nodded. "Thanks," he said quietly. "For that night. It kept me going." Tasha smiled, her eyes glistening. "You're welcome, sweetheart." Samuel watched from a distance, his chest tight. He was changing, slowly but surely. Tasha's influence was like a ripple, touching everyone around her, including him. He'd started calling Emily again, showing up for her in ways he hadn't before. He was far from perfect, but he was trying. One evening, as Tasha locked up the diner, she looked across the street. The spot where Samuel's car used to park was empty. She smiled to herself, knowing he didn't need to watch anymore. He was part of her world now, just as she was part of his. The community center opened that summer, its doors wide for kids like Malik and James. Tasha stood at the entrance, her notebook in hand, its pages now filled with plans that were real. Malik ran past, laughing with new friends. Samuel stood beside her, his suit replaced by a casual shirt. "You did this," he said. "We did this," Tasha corrected, her voice firm but warm. As the sun set, the diner's neon sign flickered to life across the street. Tasha glanced at it, then back at the center. Her dream was no longer a fantasy. It was here, built on small acts of kindness and a chance encounter that changed 3 lives forever.